This is Right to Life Radio, a production of Right to Life of Central California. And now, here's your host, John Girardi.
It's April Fool's Day. And to celebrate, well, we're not going to pull any actual April Fools, but it is the first Saturday of the month. And what we always do on our first Saturday of the month is we have our stories from the sidewalk with Right to Life of Central California's Linda Talia, where we discuss the work of Right to Life of Central California in front of Planned Parenthood on the sidewalk, interacting with people as they go in and out and sort of being on the front lines of the pro-life cause. So welcome again, Linda. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. I love coming on and telling people what's actually going on out there.
Yeah, well, I think it's always such a great snapshot into how people sort of on the ground day to day who are thinking about these decisions are doing so.
Yeah.
So you had a couple of interesting stories, including some interesting. It wasn't really someone necessarily considering abortion, but it turned into a very interesting conversation. So I want you to take the lead with it.
First, I have to say this because we're talking about being able to have people know what's going on out there, and I think, as most people know, that I don't have a problem with the gift of gab.
Yeah.
So this weekend I was out cross country skiing, and I had
as one does. As one does.
Yes. I go all the time. I'm weird. It's so fun, though.
That sounds like the most miserable form of skiing.
It's so fun. No one else is out there.
Well, yeah. I guess if you like solitude and doing.
So,
all right. Anyway.
Well, the funny thing is, my friend and I go every weekend, and we're like, no one's ever out here. And we saw somebody who had skis on, and we're like, okay, let's find out why he's here. Mm-hmm. What are you doing here in our playground?
Yeah.
So he looks at me and he said, "Oh, are you involved with Right to Life?"
Because you had your jacket on.
I had my jacket on and I had my hat on. And I was like, huh? How does he know? And then I realized how my clothes on.
That's like me when people are like, "Did you go to Notre Dame?" And I'm like, "How did you know that?" And meanwhile, I'm wearing like 3 different pieces of Notre Dame paraphernalia.
Yeah. And so he's like, "Oh, yeah, I support Right to Life in Visalia."
Oh,
and
wonderful.
So then, of course, I had to launch on what I do and how it goes and stuff. And he was trying to ski away because he wanted some solitude.
Yeah, sure. He's not up here to talk with people either.
He's like, "Oh, thanks for telling me all that, really." Anyway, so back to the sidewalk.
Sure.
We were leading into, well, I can't help it, but we talked about April Fool's Day.
Yes, today is April Fool's Day, April 1st. So
I was trying to get fooled, I think.
Right.
And I had a young girl come up to me and she says, "So what are you doing out here? Are you like, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm just offering information and stuff." And she goes, "Well, what are these healthcare centers about?" And I said, "Well, these are actual healthcare centers that I'm talking about. And this is an abortion center. They do a tiny bit of healthcare and they do a lot of abortion. That's how they keep their doors open." She goes, "Well, what's wrong with abortion? I've had 6 of them." And I was like, "Oh, really? Well, I think you're playing with me."
Yeah.
And she goes, "Yeah, I am."
Yeah.
So
the number of people who've had 6. I mean, I'm sure
They're
are
out there.
people out there who have had 6 abortions, but yeah,
but they have a different look on their face.
Kind of a 1 in a billion, or not 1 in a billion, but 1 in a million, certainly.
It was just kind of funny because I called her on it and I said, and she goes, "Yeah." And then so we started talking and she had to launch into all the reasons why it's fine to have an abortion because of the foster care system and so full and blah, 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 blah. And she was a foster care kid and how, maybe we'd be doing these babies a favor by aborting them because then they wouldn't have a hard life.
Well, and that's the thing that sort of bowls me over is that this woman was herself in the foster care system, and here she is saying maybe we should not have kids in the... I mean, there's something horribly sad about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's sad.
Sad or maybe incredibly sad. Or maybe the fact that she would be was she just like completely non-reflective on it or sort of self-loathing or I mean
no.
That's kind of it sort of seems incredibly sad that someone who would
honestly, I got the feeling she was just jumping on that bandwagon because she started saying, "Yeah, I want to be able to, I want to have basically power over my body and, my reproductive
Sure.
system. And so I kind of threw it back at her and I said, well, if you want that, then don't have sex.
Right.
If you don't want to get pregnant, you don't have to make that decision, then there you go. I mean, there's other, ways that you can manage that besides, you're
Killing
automatically thinking you have your backup of abortion. And ultimately, we just talked, and I think she wanted to have some, she kind of just wanted to have fun with me and say this or that or be just discourse.
Well, I thought it was interesting that you got to a point with her where you're sort of asking, you were trying to kind of ask her some deeper questions than seemingly she was wanting to. I think, very often kids in the foster care system are thrown at pro-lifers as like, well, what do you have to say about all these kids in foster care system? As if our answer and
oh, well, thanks for bringing that up. I didn't think about that. So let's
well, and it's like this unspoken assumption being that I guess we should just kill all of them before they even have a chance to draw breath, and the assumption being it is worse to be in the foster care system than it is to be dead.
Well, here's
which
another,
I think is if you actually say that unspoken premise out loud, you sound like a monster.
Well, here's the conundrum, though, because if you're saying that, like she said, kind of like we're doing everybody a favor, she didn't say babies, but she did actually. We're doing the babies a favor by aborting them. So that makes me think that she thinks it's better to be somewhere else. And that could lead you to believe that she has some sort of faith that there is a heaven, unless she just thinks it's fine, you're just in the ground. But it's and that just seems funny, not haha, but
bizarre.
If you're thinking that, what about hope? Which is what I ended up talking to her about. And I said, what are your dreams? And that you couldn't really have a dream at all if your life was
stuffed out before.
And then she went to, but it's just a clump of cells. And I said, well, which is it?
Right. Well, it seemed like this gal had, and this is one of the sad things I see about abortion is, well, here's my little story from the sidewalk. This is from a long time ago. I think it was before you were working with us.
Well, you couldn't say before I was born.
Not before. Well, no, before you were working with us. I was out there. Well, I was out there. It was during like 40 Days for Life. And a man was there who seemed to have some sort of intellectual disability. And he was just walking his dog down the street. And he said, oh, what are you out here for? I said, oh, I'm pro-life. Oh, that's great. But, I don't know. Like, once people hear that you're involved in pro-life work, they almost sort of have to try to, like, do an apologia for their beliefs and like, get you to, like, affirm to them that you think their pro-choice, their moderately pro-choice view is okay. And and it's like, well, so he was like, well, it's bad, but, it's a woman's right, though. So, I said, no, I don't know. What do you mean? Well, it's a woman's right. And I was like, no, it isn't. Explain what you mean. What is a woman's right? Well, it's a woman's right. People are just so infected with slogans.
Yes.
And they just hear a slogan. And it seemed like this gal you interacted with went through like four of them in the course of one conversation. She went from
you said that
do whatever I want with my body to what about the foster kids? To
she didn't bring in rape, but I'm sure if we
I'm sure
there
I'm sure if you had talked for 10 more minutes, it would have been
just
there.
One of the things that you were saying reminded me of something that happened with her because you asked the question, or you said, "No, I don't know what you mean," and she had done the same thing to me. Well, you know what I mean, and I said the same thing like 3 times. I really don't understand what you're saying. I don't know what you mean. And then when you do that,
to force them to logically lay out all of the premises of their argument, like, yes, it would be better for foster children to be murdered and not to exist. Yes, it would. Like, because, and that's, I think, what the pro-choice movement has relied on for so long is people don't like to talk about abortion. It's not a pleasant subject to think about or talk about.
The actuality of abortion.
The actuality of it.
Mhm.
And I think people are therefore willing to hear a slogan, latch onto that, and have that almost be the replacement for them actually like thinking about it and thinking it through, and actually like it's easier to just, well, it's a woman's right, and sort of
It's almost like it
wave the flag.
becomes what is that word?
It's like a crutch, like a
Mantra.
mantra. Yeah.
Becomes their mantra.
Yeah.
My body, my choice. My body, my choice.
Yeah, well, and it's even like the way that
I
Planned
got an
Parenthood.
answer.
Yeah, well, the way that like Planned Parenthood messages it, like
Uh-huh.
on social media accounts and stuff, like on Twitter and things, they'll literally do that. They'll just repeat abortion is healthcare, for example. This is one of
Yes.
their big things. Abortion is healthcare. Abortion is health, and they'll just repeat that however many times until Twitter makes them run out of characters.
Oh.
And that's like a very common thing they'll do. And again, I think it's sloganeering at the expense of any critical thought. Like, and it seems like that has so deeply infected how 99% of the country even talks about the question of abortion. That I feel like that's such a...
Or anything hard.
Or anything hard, sure. But especially, I think especially with abortion,
Yes.
it's like that's the... I think having these conversations with people where you can kind of chip away,
Yes.
it just they're never going to be there. I'm sure you've had very few conversations where someone's on the sidewalk or talking with you. Eureka! You've changed my mind. I've done a 180 because of you, Linda.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Here's $10,000.
Yeah, here's $10,000 and a new car. They're not going to give you that like satisfaction.
No.
But at the
I
very
wish they
least,
would.
yeah, well, sure. But at the very least, I hope it at least kind of breaks the ice, at least for themselves internally, to be like, well, what is it that I'm
want
actually
to think
saying?
it does, because when you were talking about it also, and you were saying, yeah, when you force them to answer, that word force has almost a negative, it does have a negative connotation, but I don't really think there's anything wrong with talking to someone and saying, no, I don't really understand what you mean. Can you just explain it?
Right.
You can't say, no, I don't understand it. You just have to say,
Yeah,
no,
well-
can you
well,
just explain it?
Yeah.
Because I think that gives value to that person too. I'm interested to hear what you think and what you want to say.
Well, I'm not just going to respond to you with another equally
Slogan.
poorly thought out slogan. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
just. This isn't just going to be a yelling match. I
Right.
actually want to hear what you think. I
Yeah.
actually want you to explain it. Yeah.
I mean, if we're going to go on slogans and my body, my choice, I could say that all day long about 100 other things.
Oh yeah, or we
Right.
could just do baby's body, baby's choice, or
Right.
yeah. I mean, we are just. It's a clump of cells.
My body, my choice. I want to have some ice cream.
Yeah, exactly.
Too bad.
Yeah. My body, my choice. I want to snort some coke. Yeah. Like that's
My
you
body,
too.
my choice. I'm going cross country
Okay,
skiing.
yeah, you're going cross country skiing. Almost as destructive. Anyway, so I find I think that's kind of it's very interesting. I think the way on the ground actually someone going in is thinking the exact same kinds of things that are just sort of culturally out there in the ether. All right. When we return, we'll be back with a couple more stories from the sidewalk with our own Linda Talia. That's next on Right to Life Radio.